Have you ever witnessed a moment where the truth was so powerful that the entire room fell silent? When a biased reporter tried to corner Keanu Reeves, no one expected a response that would echo through history. Are you ready for the moment that will leave everyone stunned? The bright lights of the set flickered slightly as the crew made their final adjustments, and the audience murmured in excited anticipation. It was the kind of moment that felt like it could go either way, an electrifying tension that filled the room. The iconic polished set of The Round Table, one of the most popular talk shows on TV, was about to witness something rare. Keanu Reeves, the beloved actor known for his stoic charm and off-screen humility, was the guest of honor tonight. However, this was no ordinary appearance. The host, an infamous liberal journalist known for his fiery takes, was known to poke and prod at his guests with pointed questions, particularly those in the entertainment industry. The audience could feel the sharp undercurrent of the impending interview, knowing the host's style was bound to push Keanu's limits. Keanu sat backstage in his chair, adjusting his dark suit jacket and preparing himself for the conversation. His calm demeanor was unshakable, a stark contrast to the host's animated energy. The host, Charles Donovan, was already seated in his chair, his smug smile betraying his confidence. He had a reputation for cornering celebrities with loaded questions, forcing them to either crumble or stand tall. He was ready to push Keanu to his edge tonight. The audience, a blend of fans and critics alike, were seated in the expansive studio, eager to see how Keanu would handle this moment. They knew the actor had a reputation for being grounded, but this was a political talk show, and things were bound to get heated. The tension in the room was palpable, the soft murmurs of the crowd fading as the studio lights dimmed. It was clear that this conversation would quickly shift from a casual chat to something far more intense. Charles took a deep breath, his eyes gleaming with a sense of calculated excitement as the cameras started rolling. He knew his role: to challenge, provoke, and possibly undermine his guest. Keanu, however, was no stranger to being misunderstood or misrepresented. His mind was sharp, and he had always remained grounded despite the whirlwind of public attention. As the interview began, Charles greeted the audience and Keanu with his usual polished charm. But everyone could feel it, the calm before the storm. The stage was set. Keanu, the soft-spoken, humble protagonist, was about to face off with the antagonist, who was ready to push all the right buttons. The audience held their breath, knowing something monumental was coming. An explosive moment that would not only define this interview, but become one of the most talked-about instances in televised history. The audience feels the change in energy as the light-hearted atmosphere begins to shift. The initial casual conversation seems harmless enough, with Keanu politely answering questions about his latest movie, discussing the finer details of his character, and sharing some funny anecdotes from the set. The dialogue flows easily at first, with a few chuckles from both Keanu and Charles, and even the audience seems at ease. But the moment the spotlight is firmly on Keanu's views on current societal issues, the tension begins to mount. The antagonist's initial questions. Charles starts by asking Keanu some routine questions, harmless topics about his acting career, the evolution of his work, and the roles he's played. It seems like a simple warm-up, allowing the audience to relax into the conversation. Keanu's responses are witty and self-aware, often deflecting the more standard questions with light humor. But it's clear he's well prepared and doesn't take himself too seriously. Charles, sensing that the conversation is flowing smoothly, casually shifts to a more controversial question. He leans forward slightly, adopting a more serious tone. Charles: Keanu, you've always been known for your privacy and humble approach to fame. But some have said that your low-key lifestyle almost feels like a criticism of the Hollywood machine, the extravagant world you came from. Is it fair to say you've distanced yourself from that world? Keanu pauses for a moment, his smile not wavering, but the shift in tone is palpable. He knows what Charles is doing, and he's prepared. Keanu, calmly: I think there's a misconception about being part of the machine or rejecting it. I believe in the balance. It's easy to get lost in all the noise, and I've never been one for extravagance. But it's not about distancing myself from Hollywood. It's about finding a personal balance. The audience chuckles, appreciating his balance of humor and sincerity. Charles, however, isn't satisfied with the easy answer. Charles, leaning forward, more direct. Balance, yes. But some might argue that balance is a luxury most people can't afford. Let's talk about privilege, Keanu. You've said before that you've struggled in your own way. But how do you reconcile that with the millions of dollars you've earned, the fame you've amassed, and the extravagant lifestyle that comes with it? Isn't there a certain hypocrisy there? A sharp intake of breath moves through the audience, and the tension begins to rise. This is no longer a casual conversation. It's turning into a confrontation. Keanu's eyes flash for a moment, a subtle shift in his demeanor as he processes the jab. But instead of reacting defensively, Keanu responds with quiet composure, maintaining eye contact with Charles. His voice remains steady, but there's an undercurrent of something deeper. Keanu, slightly more serious. Hypocrisy? That's a heavy word. I've been fortunate, there's no denying that. But I've always felt that with privilege comes responsibility. I've spent a lot of my time giving back, whether through charity work, helping people in need, or supporting causes that matter. It's not about what I have. It's about what I can do with it. I've never been comfortable with the idea of simply taking, without giving back in return. Charles doesn't back down, sensing an opportunity to drive his point further. He leans in again, his words sharp and calculated. Charles. So, you feel like your charitable efforts somehow absolve you from the criticisms of the system? Isn't that a bit convenient? Some people might say, it's just a way of washing your conscience, keeping up the good guy image, while still benefiting from a broken system. Keanu's calmness is beginning to show the faintest cracks. His eyes narrow slightly, and the warmth in his smile fades. For a split second, his frustration is visible, but he quickly reins it in. Keanu, with a wry smile. Look, Charles. I'm not here to play some hero role. If you want to dig deeper into the system, that's a whole other conversation. But it's easy to criticize from the outside. I've been on the inside for decades, and I've seen the good and bad of it. The reality is, no one person can change the entire system, but if everyone did their part, even a little, that's where change starts. For a moment, the studio is silent, the audience sensing the subtle shift from light-hearted banter to something far more serious. The air is charged now, a tension settling between Keanu and Charles, as if both are locked in a quiet struggle of wills. Charles, ever the provocateur, doesn't let up. He's fully aware of how much attention the conversation is drawing, and he's determined to keep pushing. Charles, with a more cynical tone. But isn't that the problem? Everyone doing their part? Isn't that just a way of deflecting responsibility, of letting the system continue as it is, while patting ourselves on the back? You've got millions, Keanu, and your little part is a drop in the ocean. The room feels like it's about to snap, and even Keanu, known for his calm demeanor, is now visibly frustrated. He takes a deep breath, visibly gathering himself, then leans forward slightly, his voice still controlled, but with a sharp edge that wasn't there before. Keanu, steadily, with conviction. You're right. Maybe my little part is just a drop in the ocean, but it's better than nothing. And I refuse to sit here and pretend like I haven't tried. You can criticize me all you want, but the fact is, at least I'm trying to make a difference. The room falls into a brief silence. The energy has shifted completely. Charles, realizing he's hit a nerve, doesn't quite know how to respond, but instead shifts his posture, his expression softening slightly. He's finally pushed Keanu to the point where he's truly reacting, but now he's unsure of how far to take it. Keanu's calm has cracked, and his vulnerability is evident, but in a way that actually commands respect. The audience watches with rapt attention as the two men share a brief, tense silence, before Keanu, with the smallest smile, diffuses the moment with a bit of humor. Keanu, smiling again, but with a hint of challenge in his tone. Look, Charles, you're really good at playing the villain here, aren't you? A brief chuckle erupts from the audience, and the tension dissipates, though the air is still thick with unspoken emotions. The conversation has moved into much deeper territory, but the first sparks of what will become a dramatic and empowering exchange have already been lit. The tension in the room has been building steadily. Throughout the interview, the antagonist, Charles, has pushed, prodded, and tried to provoke the protagonist, Keanu, into saying something that could be used against him or make him seem weak. But up until now, Keanu has held his ground, using calm and composed responses to every challenging question. The audience is captivated, but Charles knows that the real, breakthrough moment has yet to come. Finally, Charles delivers his most cutting, personal, and provoking remark yet. He senses that this is the moment he can truly get under Keanu's skin. Charles, leaning forward with a sharp tone. Keanu, let's face it. You've built an image of this humble, down-to-earth guy, playing the good guy in movies. But how much of that is real, and how much of it is just carefully crafted for the media? Do you think you've fooled the world into thinking you're some kind of saint? Maybe all your so-called good deeds are just another way of keeping your image polished, something to distract from the fact that, at the end of the day, you're still just a Hollywood elite, protected from the real world. The room grows tense. The words hang in the air like an accusation, sharp and pointed. Keanu's jaw tightens, and for a split second, it seems like he might falter. But instead of reacting emotionally or defensively, Keanu remains eerily calm, his face stoic, and his eyes steady. The silence is heavy, and the audience leans in, sensing that something big is about to happen. Keanu, now fully in control, stands up slightly straighter in his chair. He looks Charles directly in the eyes, as if to say, "I see what you're doing." But he doesn't rush to respond. Instead, there's a pause. He collects his thoughts carefully, his voice steady but dripping with intensity. When he speaks, his words hit with the weight of truth, personal, yet universal. Keanu, slowly and with calculated precision. You're right about one thing, Charles. I am an actor. I play characters for a living. But I also live as myself. And the thing about acting is that you have to be true to the role, to the story, no matter how difficult it may be. I don't have the luxury of pretending to be someone else for the sake of making myself feel better, or to cover up who I really am. What you see in me, the things you might call good deeds, or what you call humility, isn't a performance. It's me choosing to live with integrity, to act with purpose, even when no one is watching. Maybe you don't understand that, but that's okay. The audience holds their breath. Keanu's words have an undeniable power to them. There's no defense, no excuses. Only raw, unfiltered honesty. The room is silent, the air thick with the intensity of the moment. The energy shifts. Charles, once confident in his antagonistic role, is now speechless. His expression falters as the realization sinks in. Keanu is not playing the game he thought he was. Keanu's response isn't just a clapback, it's a declaration of authenticity. The calmness with which he delivers his words only makes the punch of his statement hit harder. He doesn't need to justify himself, nor does he need to argue. His message is clear: I am who I am, and I live by my own code. The audience is stunned for a brief moment. They exchange glances, unsure of how to respond at first. But then, as if on cue, the silence breaks. The tension that has built up over the course of the interview bursts into a loud wave of applause. People stand up, cheering and clapping in admiration. The applause is not just for Keanu's words, but for the way he stood his ground, calm, collected, and unapologetically himself. The room is filled with energy as the audience rises to acknowledge his strength. Charles, caught off guard and defeated, sits back in his chair, his earlier smugness replaced with a look of shock. He had pushed too far, and Keanu's response has flipped the narrative. Keanu, still seated, smiles slightly, a hint of empowerment in his eyes. He doesn't bask in the applause, but instead lets it wash over him as a sign that his message has been received. This is his victory. Not through confrontation, but through the quiet strength of truth. In this defining moment, Keanu's character is solidified, not just as an actor, but as someone who lives with integrity, never allowing himself to be swayed by public opinion or the expectations of others. He has not only won the battle of words, but has earned the respect of everyone watching, from the audience in the studio to those at home. This is the turning point. The antagonist's efforts to provoke and challenge have been nullified, and Keanu stands empowered, having flipped the script on the interview entirely. As the applause gradually dies down, the atmosphere in the room shifts. The tension that once filled the space now seems to fade, leaving behind a quiet, yet charged energy. The antagonist, Charles, who had been so certain of his ability to rattle the protagonist, now appears flustered. His attempts to respond falter, and the conversation awkwardly trails off. The audience's energy remains high, their reactions still fresh in their minds. In this moment, the protagonist Keanu sits back, his composure unwavering. He takes a brief pause, allowing the weight of his response to settle. He reflects quietly, but his mind is clear. He has stood his ground, not only for himself but for those who value authenticity and integrity. Keanu knows that his victory isn't about silencing his adversary. It's about staying true to his values. His message resonates beyond the interview. It becomes a beacon for those who are seeking the courage to speak their truth. With a calm smile, Keanu speaks one last time, his words powerful and sure. Keanu, calmly but with conviction. This isn't just about one interview or one conversation. It's about something much bigger. About being honest, being real, and having the strength to stand by what you believe, no matter the pressure. The interview concludes, but the impact of Keanu's words lingers long after the cameras stop rolling. The public, the audience, and even the interviewer understand that this moment will not soon be forgotten. Keanu's message has planted a seed for future conversations, a call for authenticity in a world where it's too often sacrificed for comfort or convenience. The moment of Keanu's powerful response reverberates across social media, dominating news outlets and trending hashtags. Tweets flood in, praising his unwavering integrity and eloquence. News coverage explodes with analysis, discussing how his calm but powerful retort has reshaped the conversation on integrity and truth in media. The antagonist's attempts to recover fall flat, while Keanu is hailed as a symbol of strength, resilience, and authenticity. Though he remains unaware of the immediate viral impact, the world around him starts to echo his message. His influence rapidly growing, his reputation solidifying as a true cultural icon.